Hi, this is Lisa Kleitch, and this is a presentation on melody as part of the elements of music. So when we put pitch, beat, and rhythm all together, organized by meter and scales, you can create a melody. And I think we all know a melody when we hear one, like this. Now that last melody that we heard was unaccompanied. It was just a solo flute. There was no background. But frequently melodies are accompanied, and the accompaniment is a background that supports the melody. Frequently it's instrumental. It doesn't always have to be, but frequently it's instruments, and whether the melody is being played by another instrument or by a vocalist, the accompaniment will be instrumental, like this.
You got it don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing.
So we have a jazz band accompanying a singer who's really rocking it. Okay. Now, melodies can be accompanied by less traditional methods like this one, OK Go. I'm going to indulge you here, and if you haven't heard OK Go, oh my goodness, you're missing things. The intro starts out very unconventionally. Here comes the melody.
I've been waiting for years, waiting for you to change. Oh, but there ain't much that's dumber, there ain't much that's dumber than pinning your hopes on a change in another. Yeah, I still need you. What was I gonna do? Need this one thing and getting.
I hope you listen to that on the playlist. In fact, I'm really a fan of OK Go. Their videos are awesome. Okay, so there were words to that melody, and the words for a melody are called lyrics. And frequently you'll have lyricists, people that are specialized in working on putting words to melody, that work alongside the composers who concern themselves with a whole array of other things, the rhythm, harmonies, instruments, all that's part of their realm, where you have a lyricist that specializes in those words, which we all know are very, very important. There are many songwriting teams. The West Side Story was written by Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim. Adele has her own, she's the lyricist, and Dan Wilson writes the music for her. Elton John up there, and his lyricist Bernie Taupin. Alan Menken, who writes lots of melodies, tunes for Disney, like Under the Sea, for the Little Mermaid, and he uses Howard Ashman as his lyricist, who writes all those very clever lyrics. So be aware of that, particularly when you're writing about music. Who wrote the lyrics? So does music have to have a melody? Not necessarily. Listen to this. So there were variations in pitch in this example, but we'd really be hard-pressed to say that it was melodic. There's just not enough variation in pitch to say that it's a melody. Now, we're going to listen to another work. It's one of the first works of electronic music that was composed in the early 20th century as part of the Paris World's Exposition, Edgar Varese, and it has lots of variation in pitch, but it'd be hard-pressed to say that this is a melody. Oops, that did not work right. Enough of that. So with that electronic example, it's lacking an important feature of a melody, which is a pattern. Our brains are used to hearing patterns. We like it. And so here's in this decorative arts example, you see lots of patterns presented that repeat, and there's contrasts, and that's what melodies do too. So let's listen to some patterns in a melody. The same melody is repeated, so we have a pattern setting up. They take the same melody and put it higher. So it's a contrast, but we still have that repetition going. And it returns back to the beginning, does the same thing that it did in the beginning. Again, establishing a pattern. Now this is a probably extreme version of a pattern, but you find this in music all the time. And I again encourage you to listen to that in the playlist, because it's more than just that one pattern. It just sets you up so beautifully with it. Okay. Let's get this to go. Even in the intro, they play it twice. Third time they play it. And then they change it. They sing it the first time. The second time. Third time, same melody. Then it contrasts. So listen to the actual melody, not the lyrics, and you'll see it's the same thing. Here they do it again. Same melody. Again, third time. And there's the contrast. So they've done the entire set. They did the entire set twice. So you have repetitions and contrasts within a bigger pattern of repetitions and contrasts. So be listening for that. So another feature of melody is phrases. And we were just, what was repeating and contrasting in the previous example were phrases. So let's just listen to what is a phrase. I'm going to tell you when each phrase ends, and the beginning would be implied. using the accompaniment. It ended there. And now, something that I would like to point out is that phrases can be a bit tricky, and it's not everyone will agree with all pieces where one phrase stops and another begins. And this is even with people that are well educated in music. But for the most part, you know where a phrase is. And just FYI, that was a song that we hear at our house a lot. It's a favorite with both my husband and his mother. So let's look at an example of phrases again. See if you can do this along with me. See if you can find the endings of the phrase. This is Lucky Ali from India. Don't let the Egyptian background on the video fool you. Let's zip it up here. Okay, so that wraps up our presentation on melody. Let's just go over some of those terms. Melodies can be unaccompanied, just a solo voice instrument, but most of the time we do hear them with accompaniment, and that accompaniment can be instrumental. It can also be vocal. It can also be some other things, as we saw with OK Go. When you have vocal melodies that aren't on just ooh or la or something like that, then we generally have lyrics. And be particularly aware of that when you're writing about music, because you may have a person that's a specialist in the lyrics, a lyricist, and they should be credited. So patterns make up melodies. We like that organization, and so repetitions and contrasts create patterns, and frequently then those patterns are put into bigger patterns called phrases. And phrases have beginnings and ends, and so when you're talking about melody, you can talk about, well, in that first phrase you hear something or this or that, and so phrases are a very useful term when talking about melody. Okay, that wraps up this presentation.